All right, everybody. We are in a brand... I don't know where to look, Luke, because we're in a brand new podcast
I feel really awkward
studio.
right now. I even asked Ariel earlier how to sit. Like, how do you sit in these chairs?
Everybody, if you go to
how do you make 'em feel good?
youtube.com/remindermedia or staypaidpodcast.com, not only will you see the new studio, but you'll also see this bionic
Iron
leg
Man.
that Luke has. This is the result of his ACL
I
surgery.
said Iron Man to somebody the other day at my church, and they're like, "You mean like Forrest Gump?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's probably a little bit closer. That's a little," and they were dead serious. I was like, "Yeah, Forrest Gump. I'll take Tom Hanks."
Well, this is a very special episode. This is episode 100. Dude, This is a milestone for us. We started
hard
this.
To believe.
Yeah, that's okay. We can clap. Everybody can clap. We started this thing in a closet about a year and a half ago. Then we moved to a larger closet, and we ended up in a smaller, nicely painted closet.
This is a smaller room.
It's better furnished.
But it's better furnished. That's what it is.
But hey, we have an insanely special guest for this episode. Before we get into that, that's just a little teaser, because what we've been doing lately is actually reading reviews
Can I first
from
say
listeners.
that
Yes.
the socks, Josh's sock game is on point. And I'm saying that because you guys got to go to our YouTube channel and check out the video. You got to go to staypaidpodcast.com and check out the video.
Today was the first podcast day I had to think about
I got some socks
what
too.
pants I was wearing.
I got some socks here. Look at those socks. And the audio audience is like, what the heck is going on in this new studio?
This review came from Hindsight 2020. This is actually a little bit older review, but we've only been reading reviews for the last few episodes, so I wanted to read this one out. I absolutely love this podcast. As a new real estate agent, I find tons of golden nuggets every time. I listen on my way home from work at least twice a week, so they must be catching up on backlogs. Scheduling time to listen so I can take notes and reference guests and research. If you're in a service industry and not hip to this, you are missing out.
Dang.
Thank you, Hindsight 2020. Send in your reader reviews. You can go to iTunes and leave them. You can also go to Stitcher, I believe also has reviews. But our guest today, it's exciting.
It's only taken
I haven't had to write
years.
an intro for this guy. Yeah. I've known this guy for 17 years.
That's right.
Luke's known him for 31 years.
31 years. Well, I don't know if I knew him, but
Steve Acree, he is the founder and CEO of ReminderMedia, and he's here today to kind of give all the listeners a little bit of background in terms of like how this thing started. I mean, we have a lot of people listening to us. A lot of people don't even realize that we are a company, right? They think they only know us as a podcast. So it's kind of cool to be able to introduce people to ReminderMedia, what we've been doing for the last 17 years with Steve's leadership, and just kind of dig into all of that stuff.
yeah, we actually had a client sign up the other day. I think you heard about this, right?
Yeah.
Client sign up, and they said they love this podcast. And when our rep told them, "Oh, that's our podcast. We actually produced that," they were like, "No. I mean this podcast." They're like, "No. Stay paid. That's our podcast. That's our executives on that podcast." They're like, "No way!" They had signed up for ReminderMedia. Through the podcast, through the podcast, not realizing that Stay Paid was produced by ReminderMedia and that Josh and I work here. So it's like freaking amazing. You know, it's funny because I've been trying to get Steve on the podcast for like years.
We actually recorded this episode once before.
Yes, we tried to get him on. But you know, and you'll come to know, because I want Steve to introduce himself. I want him to share his story. It's just an incredible story. Obviously, Josh, alluded to, Steve and I have known each other my whole life, right? So we've known each other. Steve and I have been working together now for almost 10 years when I look back on it, which is kind of crazy. But what you'll know about this guy, Steve, loves sales. But I can't get him in front of a camera. And so today is a historic moment of episode 100 to get him in front of a camera. And I'm hoping, and maybe the audience, if you guys actually just, after you hear this, just text, put comments and say how great it was to encourage this guy to get on camera more, because I know when he actually opens up, and this is what you're going to learn about him on this podcast, when he opens up and he actually speaks kind of from his heart and the passion that he has for sales, the passion that he has for businesses, there is absolute gold. Damn. So with that being said, Steve, welcome to the podcast. I would ask you, go ahead and share your story. Give people the background of, even take it back to your childhood. Where you grew up.
Go
because
deep.
I think we should go deep in this interview, because I know your story personally, and I know, people will get a ton of value out of the journey that you've had and what's led you here today to ReminderMedia. And did you ever think it would actually get here.
I knew it was going to be
He
this
knew,
from
yeah,
the very
correct.
beginning. Yeah, from the very beginning. Now, is this issue number one? Is this
is episode number 100.
Well, see, the reason it's taken me a while, Josh, to get on with you guys is I figured you guys needed about 99 before you got it right. Now that it's right.
That's probably true.
No, I don't know how far you want me to go back. I think for me, you just started at a really young age. Obviously, mom and dad were missionaries, and so growing up overseas gives you a whole different perspective on life and everything. But just from a very, very young age, I always had, I guess, the sales just very natural.
And where'd you grow up overseas?
Grew up in South America and Uruguay.
Okay.
And it's for those of you who don't know, it's a real small country that's underneath Brazil and to the right of Argentina. Lots of times when I say that, they think sometimes it's even in Africa and other places when you tell them you're from Uruguay. But no, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade that for anything. I think when you grow up overseas and you have all types of much broader experiences, not just in one thing, it just really helps you because life is about relationships. Everything about this organization where we're at today, I think, is people. Even when I met this guy, when I first brought him
We'll have to
on
get
board.
into that story the first time you met Josh, too.
But I think growing up overseas and having a lot of those experiences really gave me a much broader way to just relate to people. And I think that's really the key to sales, is just relating with people.
So when you grew up overseas, because I know you've shared this with me before, you talked about, you're missionary's kid. And I have camaraderie with this because was a pastor's kid. And I've shared on the podcast before, my dad's salary, I think, was $11,000 when he started out as a pastor.
Yeah.
So in 8 kids, and it's insanity. So that's a whole nother podcast in and of itself. But you've talked about, growing up poor, in a sense, and then also being overseas, and there's other types of poverty, but then you went to school with the ambassadors' kids. Yep. You went to school there, and the effect that had on you. Share a little bit about that experience, because I know you did stuff with your clothes. You started selling stuff, because I've
heard some of those stories.
Heard some of these
stories.
I
think the funniest story of it all, I think when you talk about seeing different perspective, it's like I think sometimes we misinterpret what poverty really is. What I mean by that is, sometimes people, I don't want to say as abroad, but you might think, oh man, I don't have anything, or I'm really financially not well off, or whatever. But when you grow up and you see kids coming and knocking on your door and asking, for food, and you see your mom starting to give food around and have this big long line, all the kids are coming. That level of poverty just opens your eyes to a little bit different. Now, I'd like to say when I grew up, Mom always tells the funny story that I don't want to date myself though if I use this, but okay, I will. I guess OP, Ocean Pacific, back in, I guess, was the hot thing, and all the kids. You remember all the kids that were. When I was growing up, all the kids that when I went to school with the military and everything, they had all that and I didn't. So I always used to tell Mom, I can't wait until I can, buy the ones that I want, because Mom would be buying me other stuff, or, not to be funny, I'd be wearing your dad's and Jimmy's clothes as the hand-me-downs and everything. So I always, you always want to probably have some of those. And the funniest story is I had one pair of, and I've told this a bunch of times, I had one pair of Nike, whichever way you say it. I had one pair of shoes, but the problem in Uruguay is when you're playing basketball, you just wear out the soles. I mean, you could literally wear, those were asphalt courts, not in the States, at least when you have your courts, they don't wear your shoes out. But like, you could literally, if you played a hard game basketball, you could wear the sole out. But I only had one pair for a couple of years. But the way I maintained it, as I went down to the local rubber factory and convinced the general manager, my mom was like, "You're never going to do this."
How old were you?
I would have been 15 or 16. And I convinced them to cut me the excess rubber that was left over off whatever they were making. It was this yellow, it was about that thick, and so I convinced them to cut me a pattern off on the shoes. And then when there was excess rubber, they would cut me a couple extra on those. And then I would take those and just glue them to the bottom of my shoe. And
that is resourcefulness.
That is. And then when that salesmanship too.
General manager.
I agree to get him to do it. And then when it would wear out, I shouldn't say, so I'd paint it white, just to keep it white, keep it going. So I had that one pair of shoe literally for about a year and a half, almost maybe 2 years.
Oh my gosh. So, obviously you learn perspective growing up overseas. The different, you get to, talk to tons of different people and learn from tons of different perspective. You came to the States in college?
I came back
college?
For college, yep. Mom and Dad stayed down there, so it was that was an interesting experience just for me. It was not a cultural shock. One of the things I've always said is that if you grow up in the States and you lived in a certain town, you can kind of always go back to where you live and you've got relationships. You know, I came back to the States with no relationships, I guess. You know, I went to college. I can remember Jimmy, my older brother. I can remember him, you know, taking me up and just, you know, dropping me off. And it's a moment where you just realize, you know, hey,
you're not in Kansas anymore.
I'm not in Kansas anymore. And so it was an interesting experience. College was good, but it was, you know, it was really different for me.
Is college where you got your first entrepreneurial spirit or entrepreneur venture besides the tennis shoes?
Yeah, well, I don't think I've ever told you this, but in college, my college roommate and I, who we ended up working together later on, but he and I tried to start didn't go well. We tried to start a painting company.
Like painting houses?
Yeah, like painting houses.
Now it all makes sense. The fumes.
Yeah, I guess.
Fumes. Now it all
rubber
makes sense.
fumes, paint fumes.
But I remember we bought we got so excited because we thought, oh man, we'll just go paint houses for people. So we bought one of those electric spray guns and everything. Yeah. But I don't think we ever sold a single client. That didn't work very well. And I think we tried a couple other things through college that didn't really go anywhere. But it was the first foray into just saying, hey, you know, how do you do a business? I mean, how do you start? You know, probably that mistake was we bought all the infrastructure and didn't figure out how we're going to sell it. So that was maybe the first inkling.
Dude, that's huge.
That's a golden nugget right there.
That says if you can't figure out how to sell it, you know, you really don't.
And not
have
to fast forward too far, because we've told this story on the podcast before. But when we started ReminderMedia, you sold it before we figured out how to make it.
Yeah, that was.
So that's a life lesson right there.
It is, man. I've shared before that Grant Cardone, like that's the same thing he says as an entrepreneur. Is all entrepreneurs die because the space they put between the idea and monetization is so wide. And usually that space is filled with infrastructure stuff. Right? And you spend so much time before monetization of the idea. Yeah. And you know, that's obviously the key.
And we still have that even in our own organization. Sometimes we're trying to figure out 10
Josh and I met today, and we said the same thing.
Instead of just moving forward, you know, when there's a good idea, take the idea and figure out if it's going to work. It's kind of, and I'm not jumping ahead, but it's kind of what we try to do with our clients right now is what are good ideas? Let's execute on the ideas and get the feedback from our clients to say, hey, that's a really good idea or that's a bad idea. Well, if it's a really good idea, then you can invest money, time, resources, people into building it, you know, but it's very hard as you become a bigger and bigger organization. You know, we tend to do all the stuff first instead of just figuring out, you know, is this something that the client's going to use and to work? So that's, you know, that was probably, like I said, going back, that was the first inkling. I had 2 or 3 of those things where after you bought a paint gun and bought this and bought that and spent all this money, and then you realized
no one wants to buy it.
Yeah, no one wants to buy it. I'd rather have all that money back that I spent. So those would kind of be some of the first things that we tried.
So what was your first real success you feel in entrepreneurship? Like, when did you feel like you had something?
Well, I think for me, like after college, I moved out to Texas, and I ended up working for General Dynamics, which is a government contractor, and I didn't last too long there. And the reason being, I think, was that as an entrepreneur, I think an entrepreneur's mind just thinks a little bit differently, and suddenly I'm in an organization and I can't fix inefficiencies. I can't execute. I've got 5 hoops I've got to jump through before I can, you know, so you're looking at that and you're looking around. And so I didn't last very long there. I didn't last long at all. And then I moved on. I got my MBA, and probably the first entrepreneurial experience that I had that was really good is after that, I kind of realized, okay, I do want to have my own thing. I want to be in control of my future as an entrepreneur. It's not just as an entrepreneur, it's not just seeing an opportunity, but there also has to be some motivation that you kind of want to control you want to have control.
You want to have freedom.
You want to have freedom.
Yeah.
So I think the first one that I did is after I got my MBA, which is great. I don't know how.
Which is great.
It's great, yeah, to have an MBA, but I'd say
don't get me started.
Well, the MBA of life is a lot better.
Yes.
So you get your MBA, you're going out there, now you got to look.
It's a golden nugget, ladies and gentlemen.
What is that, you guys? This thing, golden nugget?
That's our thing.
That's your thing, all right. So when you get out there and you get the MBA and suddenly, I'm finished, and I'm like,
now what?
Yeah, now what? Now I've either got to get a job or, I got to do something. And so while I was getting my MBA, though, I probably should step back. One of the first things where I made, tell you what, this is the first one that made a couple things click for. I don't know if I've even told, I think I may have told you, but maybe I'm not. When I was getting my MBA at TCU, Texas Christian University, they have a big fraternity and sorority system. And so in one of my MBA classes, I had a gentleman I'm still friends with, but he had watched me using Quark Express on Mac software, designing some stuff up, and he goes, "Hey, could you do a directory with me?" He goes, "I'm on the IFC," and so he goes, "I can do this directory of all the students." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, this is pretty easy. I can design it up, and we can put a cover on it." He goes, "Hey, here's what we'll do. We'll go sell all these ads, and then we'll use that money to pay for the books and give it to all the fraternity for free, members for free, and the sorority members for free." And so that was probably the first one, because I didn't understand any of that, but he just got on the phone and started calling the cleaners, the pizza, the alcohol store, all the different places where the kids were going to frequent and so forth. And he's just selling these ads. I watched him do one or two and thought, that's easy. I can do that. So I'm like, so he was like, "Hey, you'll just design the book. And I'm like, "Well, I can design a book. I'll do that in a night. I'll get on and start closing." So in less than probably 10 days, we made some money. It's just like we made more money in the 2 weeks than maybe at General Dynamics I'd made, say, a couple months. I was just kind of like, oh wow, that worked.
It triggered you the power of sales.
It probably did at that moment. It happens, and I shouldn't say it was an easy sale. One thing about sales is, like, if the need is there, like I think that's part of the reason why we're at where we're at today, is the need was so strong when we started back then. So, and I can talk about that more in the future, but in this case, every one of the people that were talked to, whether it be the pizza place, the dry cleaning place, they all wanted to capture the freshmen that were coming in, and they realized. And then you want to capture people whose disposable incomes, not that all fraternity and sorority members, their incomes are stronger. Yeah, they just have more disposable income. So they were just like, I mean.
They wanted that obvious.
Yeah, I laughed and told Will, we underpriced this thing, because it was just kind of like everything was selling so quick. It was just like, it was just boom.
How many years did you do?
Well, I did it every year because I was a hall director for a few years, and so my MBA wasn't really part-time, but the beautiful part about it was if you worked at the school, they'll pay for it.
Gotcha.
So, but you can only do 6 hours or like 9 hours. So yeah, for 2.5 years, I was just a hall director, which was great because it was fun, and I'm taking just small classes, and so it was. And so we did that every semester. We did.
So how did you get from selling fraternity books, sorority books, or directories basically with ads, the magazine?
The next thing that I did, because once we all graduated, I turned around and thought, hey, let's just put these marker boards up on every student's door, because all these vendors, they want to get to these students. So then what I did is I just made up a big 11 by 17 sheet, put their ads around the edge, and slapped a pen on it.
That's beautiful.
And convinced I shouldn't say convinced, student development, I was working there, so I had a nice
You just did it.
I didn't just do it, but I went and said to my boss, I was like, hey, I just want to do this. Do you mind if I do this? And he's like, oh, that's a great thing. It'll be great service for all the students. Well, I don't have a board on there where people can leave messages for them. And so then I did that, and I made 20 boards, sold prime corners, sold them for more. And then I started realizing how you price things to make it all work. And I did that every semester. It was easy because it was funny because you would just call the vendors and they would just want to be in it. And my younger brother at the time, I always tell this funny story because one of the vendors was buying just the top 5. Was paying out what seemed to be outrageous to me at the time. But it was outrageous numbers for that. And so I was trying to teach Don a little bit, my younger brother, how to sell. So I told him, hey, you're going to call all the vendors. And so he goes in and he's calling all the vendors, and he comes in and he says, hey, this one vendor doesn't want the 5 squares at the top. And I'm like, what?
What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean? What are you doing? And he always tells this story. Next time you see him, you can laugh and ask him about this story, because I don't think I've told you this one. And so I'm like, Don, there's no way they don't want it. And he's like, I called them, they just didn't want it. So I remember, here, give me the number. So I call the guy, and the guy answers. I don't even know his guy's name, but I'm just like, hey, this is Steve. We do the student message boards on thing, the all 5, it's XYZ. I just want to make sure you don't want it because I got 4 other people kind of just like you who want these 5 squares. And I just want to make sure because you had told Don here, my person who's selling these for me, that he didn't want it. You didn't want it. So as long as you don't want it, I just want to verify before I give it away. And this guy's like, okay, right. Send me the contract.
Oh,
so,
man, this just shows you're creating natural urgency.
Yeah.
Creating demand. No one wants to be left
but that
out.
was like the prime. I mean, that was like the top of the board. So, you went from there. But then the next one, so right after that one, once I finished my MBA, then once I finished the MBA, it was kind of like time to move on from being a hall director. Although it was a fun job. I always recommend that. I just recommend it. It was a fun job. But, and then we're not going to tell the stories in this podcast, but I got some great stories out there.
That's
That's the after hour. Yes,
That's between 2 ferns.
That's right, between 2.
If you go watch our video right now, you'll see that Steve is between two ferns. I think these are ferns. I have no idea.
I
I'm not
think
a
that's a
plant person.
fern. I think
Well,
that's
I said that's a little baby fern.
This is a
there.
succulent, right, Ariel?
no, that's like a cactus.
Okay. Sorry.
it's
Okay.
plant.
I don't know plants. All right, let's keep going on the story. So
right.
you finished selling the
I
marker
didn't have
boards.
anything to do, so I was sitting there for a little bit trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And the Passbook at the time, which was the big coupon book, they were selling a ton of those and making some good money. And I just thought, when you look at the Passbook, one of the problems with the Passbook, if for the listeners that don't know what it is, it's a big old coupon book, but it's as big as the phone directory. It's just huge. I think it's still done. It's probably,
Is this for the students? Is this for the
no,
campus,
this
or
is just for all over the United States.
Nationwide.
This comes nationwide. He called it the Passbook. And they would sell a rep.
that one dated you. That reference.
It did. It
Yeah.
probably did. Thanks.
The Ocean Pacific was fine. That one.
Well, that was hand-me-downs for you too, probably. But so anyway, so I'm looking at it, and the biggest problem with the Passbook, because the kids use it as fundraisers, both the baseball leagues, softball leagues, all the different, and so they sell a lot of them. But the problem is it's so big, you put it in your trunk or you put it on your bookcase or something like that,
You
and then
can't carry it around, right?
yeah, you never use it. Yeah. And then the other thing is when I just took a look at the Passbook, when I critiqued it, I thought to myself, man, there's only about 100 in here that you want. And there's literally thousands in this thing, and it's newspaper print. So it's kind of cheap looking. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Not cheap. It was just, it's printed very price conscious.
It looked like crap.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for defining that, Luke. I appreciate that. But anyway, so I thought, what if you just took the best 100, and then what would you call it? Like the best 100? What would you do with it? And then as I just formulated it in my mind, I thought to myself, and I don't know whether because I was at the bank depositing a check or something, I thought, oh man, what if you took the 100 best and just called them freedom checks? And packaged them in a little teeny thing, and then guys could carry it in their jackets, and women could have it in their purse, and then you're actually going to have it. And the 100 ones that you want to be in there, or people that you want to have in there. So I thought, hey, I wonder if I could sign up the vendors, So instead of making one, before I did that, I thought, I wonder would people use that as a fundraiser? And then of course, what would they pay for this, something like that? So then I went out, and I think I went to the Red Raiders, where I was living. The Red Raiders is a sports organization, and I got a hold of the guy who was the commissioner of the entire league, because he had like 2,500 kids, and I thought, 2,500 kids, each one selling 4, there's 10,000. Okay, let's go see if this guy will do it or not. So I went to see him, and I brought the big Passbook because they had sold the Passbook but hadn't had a lot of success with it. And so I went.
Was anyone else doing that as fundraisers at this point?
Yeah. There was
There
was a lot of people doing this. Well, what happens, Passbook, I think, got to the point where people were buying it every year.
Okay.
So you would just buy it. But then I think I don't know this for sure, but I think what they did is instead of splitting the 50-50 on it, they were given only a smaller amount. So you kind of lost your fundraising edge. Because if you'd sold a bunch of Passbooks and gotten the 50 on the 40, I think sold $40, I can't remember, but you were getting 20 on each one of those. You know what I mean? But then all of a sudden, when you were buying it, when you started buying it, instead of getting 20 because you bought it, your organization only got like 5.
Gotcha.
So did you end up selling a lot of freedom checks?
Yeah, I sold a lot of freedom checks. I did. I sold a lot of freedom checks. Well, what happened was, what I did is I went and talked to that guy and several others, and I said, what if it was this? And instead of being $40, because that was a tougher sale for the kids to do, what if you just made it 20 and you got 10? And he was like, oh, that would be really good. And who are you going to have in there? And I just went and picked off like 30 of the best that were in there. And then also a lot of vendors that were good vendors wouldn't want to be in there because you were going to get a ton of these. They were printing like 40,000 of these things. So I was like, hey, we're only going to do 15,000 and that's it. So your maximum exposure, because some of the better vendors.
So if you got a restaurant or something, they weren't too nervous that it was going to.
Yeah, they were going to get pounded. Like, and I forget the name of the one guy. The funny story on that was I got Billy Miners. I got Billy Miners in downtown Fort Worth, and so I got him in, and that was like having an anchor tenant in a shopping center. That's all that was, man. When I went to the
it helped you sell the other people.
Yeah,
no, I mean that's a sales tip is once you close somebody, it's like for us, if we close a top producer, it's so much easier to
It's like what we're doing so well right now is when we close that one realtor who's going to work with us and we can change their lives. We're helping that realtor communicate with their clients, build a relationship, create the human. We are making sure every other realtor in that office knows about it, aren't we, guys? Yeah. Aren't we? Okay. That's a side point. I'm going to throw that, chase that. You can cut that later if you don't want. But anyway, so what I realized is with Billy Miners in the book, then I went and got 5 or 6 of the really good ones in. Then I made a secondary layer of people that I thought these would be really good, but the reason they're in there, they're scared of it. And so I just called them up real quickly, went and saw 1 or 2 of them, got both of them. So now I already had 6 or 7 really good anchors in my mall. Mm-hmm. And I was off to the races at that point. Because then all I did was I got the vendors in the checkbook because I only needed 100 and they were falling like dominoes because
once you got a couple big names,
it's the same thing. It's the same thing what we're doing in here. We have more and more better realtors that are working with us, and we're getting more and more of the testimonials, the experiences, and all the rest of it. It's leveraging that. So what I did was I leveraged that. I put all the people in the book, and I literally got all 100 into the book in less than 2 weeks. I mean, it was just like I can remember some days I was going in and seeing literally 12 appointments.
Did you sell all 15,000?
Mm-hmm. In about 45 days.
Dang, that's a lot of money.
It was like, okay, I had one epiphany, So then
did you try to scale that?
I did.
Why that? So what happened? You sell
15,000 in
45 days, you try to scale it.
This was one of the first things that I don't know that I've ever told you this, Lou, because obviously I have a chance to really, help you and Josh and the other senior execs with some experiences I've had. Yeah, then I hired some people.
We talk about this on the podcast.
We do. We talk about building a team. It's actually one of the biggest pain points. It's the
number one pain point.
You're trying to get out of your business and delegate.
Yeah.
And how do you do that effectively without failing? Mm-hmm. And that's crazy amount of businesses fail.
Well, that's like when
you're hiring.
In real estate, if you're going to build a team around you, you have to do the same thing. It's the same pain point. And I probably back then didn't understand anything about expectations and accountability and execution when the accountability is positive and execution when the accountability is not positive. I didn't understand any of that. I just thought everybody's like me. Everybody's like me. Let's just hire them. Let's just hire them and they're Steve. All you're going to have to do is you're going to show them and you're going to give them the majority of the profits. You're going to take a little piece of it, but you're going to give them and change these people's lives. But
there's a huge golden nugget in there. Is because real estate agents make this mistake too, is you think you can, if you just give people the majority, like a lot of commission, or a lot, like you can fix things with money. We've made that mistake even in ReminderMedia over the years, is you think you can fix it with money and you can't.
Right. It's got to be internal to the person. Yeah. So I hired, and I got 4 markets up.
4?
Yeah. And it was going, but it just got harder and harder because I'm having to motivate people, and some people's motivations is to a certain level, and so they get to a certain point, and I'm not saying they're happy, but if you've only been making this and now you're suddenly making that, but you don't have the vision to that, it's really about, it's helping people, which is where I'm at today. My goal today is to try to help the people around me to have bigger visions of what they're capable of, bigger visions of what they can do,
That's good.
And not limit themselves on their experiences or not limit themselves on ReminderMedia. So often people will say, well, the reason I'm not doing this is because ReminderMedia, my manager, or whatever. It's helping people understand that you can go as high as you want. You know, what's the difference between the realtors in the top 3% and you as a realtor who's not? There are no differences other than they believe. And that belief allows them to execute. And that was my first foray. And all of a sudden I've got some people around me, and then I don't know how to give them, you know, I don't know how to get them. I don't know how to get them to, since we're on a podcast and people can't see, you know, people sometimes they can only see, like a tunnel. Yeah, and they can't. The secret to good leadership and the secret to really loving people is trying to help them just
pry those blinders off.
Yes, get them off, and know that you can have anything, that you can achieve anything you want to do. It's true. We live in the greatest country. It's true. We are not in Russia. We are not in China. We are not in, and it's not a critique of those countries. It's like the systems in those countries aren't like the systems that we have here in the U.S. So you can do anything you want to set your mind to. In fact, it's better to find your passion in what you want to do and do that. Because money will follow, but the passion, you can't peg someone into that.
You know what I love is the belief. Execution comes from belief, and money comes from execution.
That's
so
right.
It's like it all comes back to, you know, having that belief. And you think of Elon Musk right now trying to build this tunnel in LA. And when they interview him, he's just like, you know, I'm just tired of the traffic in LA. I live here. It's my hometown. I'm just tired of it. And I figured I'm going to try to fix it.
Yep.
And it's just as, will he fix it? He doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know. He said on this interview I watched, he doesn't even know if it will work, if the Hyperloop will work, or whatever it's called.
The best was, and I think I sent it to you, the best was when they're interviewing him and the guy is trying to tell him that it can't be done.
Yeah.
And he's just beating on Elon.
This is the one because when it slows down, it kills a human.
He goes, you're taking a human from 3,000 miles an hour or whatever it is and slowing them down to stopping, and you're going to do it within like 45 seconds.
It will kill him.
It'll kill him. And Elon Musk goes, yeah, that's an issue. You know, when I'm looking at it, is I'm saying to you, you know, there's someone that sees, you know, and you've probably told this story, Josh, but like when we first started this, it's the same thing. You know, when I knew we needed to close all those realtors in the York meeting that we had, we need them.
Yep.
So we're gonna close them. You know, we're gonna close them right now in this meeting. And when that one lady who says, well, I don't have a photo, so how am I going to do that? I guess I'm not going to do it. Oh no, we got that taken care of. We have a green screen. Yeah, we have a green screen with digital camera. We're going to come out. We're going to shoot everybody in the office. And then right around the table, everybody's like, "Oh, okay, that makes total sense." Okay, and then they're signing a contract, which was just like it was like our agreement was, we're going to print a magazine and mail it on your behalf. Sign your name here. I guess there's a little element, the same thing what Elon Musk is saying. He's just saying, I don't know, but I'm going to solve it.
But he's very practical about it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The breakdown for humans so often, and I think it's a little bit of our conditioning in the systems we grow up in from education systems and stuff like that, but is that we don't realize it's just problem solving.
Yeah,
right.
That you can literally, like if your client has a problem with the house, with the contract, even if you don't know, just go solve the problem. Just go figure it out. Research, call the people who might know, look up on the internet, go to your local library. But so often we don't think that way, and so it just stifles us and stifles the growth.
The amount of time it's going to take to go solve that problem. So you're like, well, I don't have time for that. Meanwhile, you're spending all the rest of your time trying to generate business where all you had to do was go solve that problem for that person.
It's a great
and
point.
there's your business.
It's such a good point.
And it comes back to conditioning. And when you're raised, it comes into that. And also, I think it also comes back to like, if you've had to, you know, make things happen a little bit.
If you've had to be resourceful.
Yes, if you had to be resourceful. I mean, some of that, then you naturally.
That's the Cortez mentality that they talk about all the time.
Burning the boat.
Burn the boat. Because it makes you become resourceful. It makes you become resourceful. So talk about, you tried to scale it, didn't work.
Yeah. But that taught the people side of it.
Right.
That made me realize that is the key.
And you mentioned a couple key things in there. You mentioned this idea of setting expectations, holding accountable, and rewarding the execution, both on the success side and on the failure side. And I think that's a really good golden nugget to point out to the listeners, is that is leadership 101, is set expectations, trust but verify, right, which is the accountability portion, and then reward and discipline.
Yeah.
And I think most people fall down at the discipline.
Yeah,
the discipline is the hard part.
The third one, that is the key. That is.
I mean, Josh could probably talk about this with his kids. It's the same with your kids.
So I got a text today that my son has lost bathroom privileges at school.
No way.
Because
how do you lose bathrooms?
He's locking the stalls and crawling out from underneath them, so that the other. So now he has to use the nurse's
What is it, like
bathroom
father, like son, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure. I'm not certain. I texted my mom to find out. I'm pretty sure I had the same exact thing when I was a kid.
That's amazing. So then how do you jump from Freedom Checkbooks, trying to scale it, didn't work, you move on from that, and is that when you started the first magazine?
No, I was doing 2 or 3 other things. I was trying to figure a bunch of different things out. So while I was doing Freedom Checks, I had a couple of corporate accounts. And so I was doing that and learning to manage some people. And then I had the opportunity to participate in a magazine that didn't last long. I think it lasted like a year and a half. But I had a chance to participate from a ownership position and from a sales position where I was selling the ads. So from there, I had, in that experience, I learned about kind of how magazines are done and created. And then from there, I was going to start my own magazine, like right after that, and along a little different vein than where this one ended up and the one before that. But in that magazine, I sold national ads, so I continued the sales side, which is strong, and then I got to I can also operate. I like both sides of it. I much prefer sales than I do operations, and meetings and things of that nature.
You love meetings.
I love meetings. Let's have meetings.
Yeah, if the only thing you get from this podcast is death by meetings.
Death by meetings.
Stephen is an advocate of that.
Of death by meeting.
Yes, death by meetings.
But no, so I enjoy the sales side. So I did fairly well in terms of selling the ads to Purina and Imes. It was a pet magazine. And so I learned that side of it. And I think in the 100th issue video that I did, I spoke a little bit about this. Was after that magazine ended or didn't make it, I was once again back at ground zero. I mean, there's nothing like getting to a certain level and then going right back down to zero. I don't want to go there ever again, but I'm just saying
we have had, it's a common thing. So many people that we have, successful people on this podcast, and we've been able to interview, you hear it over and over again. It's complete resets. We had Festini. He had to reset in 4 different markets. We've had Kim Angela. She's reset.
Dean Thurman of White Glove had reset multiple times. It's crazy.
So if you're at that place where you're hitting a low.
It's like a starting over. What you get to do when you start over is all the mistakes that you made.
Right. It's also risk reward, right? I mean, you're taking a big risk.
You take a little bigger risk than when you do it, but it's just that resetting ability to do. So when the company went out and that magazine no longer existed, I'd learned some things and I was back down to zero and just figuring out. I mean, I can remember at the time I was literally laying out by the pool at my apartment, my condo there in Fort Worth, trying to figure out, well, is it finally time to get a job? Is it finally time to
go back to General Dynamics?
Go back to what's funny about that is I can remember mom and dad, and what's funny is sometimes the people that love you the most, they don't have some of the experiences.
They don't understand.
So their loving advice that they give you,
sucks.
No, it doesn't.
Let's just be real. This is in between two ferns now. So it's like the loving advice you get from your parents.
Well, I can just remember mom and dad saying, "Well, you're reaching certain age, and then it's like, where's your 401k?
Maybe it's time to settle down."
Yeah. I don't know why we're laughing about that, but okay, all right. But what I'm saying is you just realize, mom and dad were saying this to me. Even I'd say Jimmy and Alan, your dad and them, and I didn't have a lot of mentorship going along the way. Like whereas now I have certain people around me that can mentor me. But having a mentor is just huge because you're sitting there, and the mentor should be someone that's a little further along from you than you are. Because so often when I talk to people, and they're experiencing something, and I'll ask them, well, what do you think? Or, and they'll tell me what everyone that hasn't arrived to where they're at, they'll tell me all the things that they're saying, and I'll be like, so what do you think? And they'll fail to realize, wait a second, you need to ask people that are further down the road than you. Now, some people that are further down the road got lucky, didn't work hard. So sometimes it take that. But I will tell you that the best advice that I've ever gotten from people, it's always people that are further down the road. Because when you tell them, hey, it didn't make it, I'm at ground zero, then they can, the guidance that I would have given myself at that moment is I'd said, dude, you just figured out how to do publishing, you've figured your sales, you've now hired people, you've managed people. I would tell that Steve, keep going. Yeah, don't stop. Figure out whatever you're going to do. Don't stop. Don't go get a job. Because I can remember I had some people that were getting me interviews. I can remember some interviews that I had. Teach and Play Smart was in the startup, and I could have gone there. I did go there for just a little bit, but I wasn't there very long when I realized, what am I doing? This is not what I want. So I remember after I left there, I'm sitting at the pool, and that it was that time that I was out on an air, and I was just driving down. I think I said, and if you haven't seen it, you should watch our 100th year video. It's in the issue video. It's really, really good.
That'll be coming out in a month.
In a month?
About a month.
Okay, so when that comes out, you definitely want to see that. So I'll kind of give away a little piece of that. I was just driving down, and I'd realized pet owners, because it was a pet magazine, pet owners are what you want to get. We weren't getting them fast enough for subscriptions. And it was in that moment when I went by Hewlin Animal Clinic. And I'll leave it at that. You got to go with the rest of it.
Yes, I like the teaser.
There you go, the teaser.
I like the teaser.
I'm learning from you, Jeff. But it was in that opportunity that then I realized, hey, there's an opportunity. And that's where I did the first one where I put together all these things that I had learned. And I put them together and just took off. I just went. And what I mean by that is I rented office space that
had blood on the walls, right?
It was an old medical clinic. It was an old medical clinic. It was like, it's a great rate though. Yeah. It was very good. The leasing rate was extremely good. But and they had the little doctor's offices, and I think there was like on that one wing, we started on that one wing where there was 4 or 5 of those little teeny, offices where you go in to see the doctor. Yeah. And even nowadays when you go to the doctor, they're much bigger. This was a bunch of years ago it was a clinic for lower income housing and lower housing. So it was like, so they were just like, I mean, you could barely get into them sometimes, but that was enough to put the desk and put the calling stations in there, plugged his phone in. We didn't have the magazine, but we knew who he needed to sell was the veterinarian.
But you created a pet magazine in your mind. You hadn't created it yet.
No, yeah.
But you said, I'm going to do a pet magazine.
We're going to do a pet magazine. These veterinarians, we're going to start helping them educate their clients on the value of going to the vet, because I knew they had pressure from Petco and PetSmart with the Banfields and the Petco shot clinics. And so I already knew the pressure point from the veterinarian was they weren't really educating. So I already knew what the pressure point was, but I had no magazine, didn't have a customer service rep.
Dang.
I didn't have a way to charge a credit card. We didn't have anything. And so me and...
You had a phone.
I had a phone. Me and my college roommate, at the time, he was ready to do something different. And I don't want to say I convinced him to do this, but I convinced him to do this. I mean, he literally talked on me on what I said, hey, we can sell this. Because I'd already sold, so I knew we can sell this. And so he went out and talked to one veterinarian, on a Sunday afternoon. I talked to him on a Thursday, I think it was. He went and saw the veterinarian on a Sunday that he knew from his church. Calls me up and says, all right,
I'm in.
So I'm in. He goes, so I'm just going to come to California. And I'm like, because I was in Huntington Beach at the time. And I'm like, and at the time I hadn't taken the jump myself. I mean, I had taken the jump completely telling everybody.
You just threw the bait out there.
Yeah, I did.
Bob would bite.
Bob would bite. And he bit. And so he's like, I'm going to get a plane ticket. I'll be out there on Friday.
Well, Bob worked for Merrill Lynch? At the time? So he left Merrill Lynch.
Yeah, he
moves out to California.
Yeah.
You guys were into space. You grabbed a phone.
This was a moment. There's certain moments along the journey of my life that I can remember like yesterday. Some with you, I can remember like yesterday.
I can remember yesterday.
I can too.
I cannot remember yesterday.
I was going to make the comment that the garage that we were in that video.
Yes.
That's not the garage that we were in.
Yeah, it was.
No, it was. But I'm saying, see how nice that garage
Oh,
was?
yeah.
I mean, that was like, it was not like the garage. That garage was beautiful. You know, Norm spent some money on
They
that.
had
the one that we
remodeled that.
had.
Hey, well, gentlemen, we won't get into what memories, half memories are made up and embellished.
Here's a moment. All right, here's a moment that I'll remember. It's like, so that morning we came in to start calling, and I can remember I sat down with Bob real quickly, and I said, okay, now listen, man, here's how we're going to sell this. This is what you're going to do and say. And now, you got to understand, a broker, a stockbroker, is, I mean, they don't even, I shouldn't say this because there might be some clients who are, I said, you're selling. They're selling. Yeah, close your ears if you got. They're salespeople.
Yes,
they're,
correct.
They're salespeople, right? And I can remember I'm starting to tell Bob how to do this, and you know Bob, or you know Bob, and he just looked at me. He goes, "Are you trying to tell me how to sell?" And I'm looking at him like, "Well, no, I'm just." He goes, "Go get on the phone." And so I can remember. So I go into my office, and at the time, and it had been a long time since Bob and I had been spending 24/7 together. And so it was funny because I'm calling about an hour and 20 minutes, and I think I'd gotten my second veterinarian to sign up, where I'd gotten the credit card and we were ready to go. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go and tell Bob, okay, Bob, this is how you do it. Right? So I can remember, I opened the door, and I was at one end, and he was at the other end.
5.
He's got 4.
This is the moment.
This is the moment, because he walks out and I walk, and I start walking down, and I said to him, "Hey man, are you thinking what I'm thinking?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah," and I go, "I just got my second one, so this will work. I promise you we can do it." And that's when he looked at me. He goes, "Well, I've already got 4." And so it worked. The dynamic of Bob and I worked extremely well together because he was extreme sales oriented, and so it allowed me to focus on the ops side, like, okay, how are we going to charge these cards,
right?
You know, and then how are we going to get the list from the veterinarians? I mean, there was like 30 different software out there. It was a very not convoluted, but it was just like every area where a veterinarian had his brother, uncle, nephew, cousin, whatever, who was a coder, had written a piece of software. And then they spread it around in their local. So
there was no
city.
Industry standard.
No, there was two players that were starting to roll it up, but there was still 40. So it allowed that we were just. It was a perfect timing. But that's the one I wish we'd have ran a video the entire time, because, man, talk about not knowing anything, about what we were doing. Is we're just closing veterinarians, getting lists in, and then
But I love that. That is the lesson there.
Well, we literally
no idea what you're doing.
This is the truth. We put together our first version of American Lifestyle. We literally put it together that night. Now, we had gotten some of the articles and everything in. I can remember you saying to me, "How are you going to do that?" I'm like, "Well, we'll just go do it. I'll call them up and I'll get it. You just put it together." But what I was saying is, but Bob and I, there was such a moment. It was just such a moment where it came together, and it worked, man. And he started selling. He started managing the salespeople. I took off. I figured out how we were going to charge this. I went to the bank. Hey, we need to charge credit cards. And how do we do that? Right. What's that process? Then I got a programmer in just to do that. Then I can do a lot of operations. So I grabbed FileMaker Pro, and I wrote a CRM in FileMaker Pro one night. We just started using that. Now I'm loading up veterinarians. I'm calling, and this is breaking. This is crashing. But it was just a moment where it just.
And how many years did you guys do?
In about a year and a half. I don't know if all my numbers are exactly right, but about a year to a year and like a half, we had about 1 in every 3 veterinarian that was working with us. The mistake I made there was, and I'll blame it on the MBA, the only class that I didn't get the type of grade that I wanted to get was in accounting. But once I started having to run my own books, you figure out what a debit is and a credit is extremely fast.
And if you don't,
I don't understand why the account has it. What I'm saying is the real world accounting is how to learn accounting, in my opinion.
Sure.
But you got to teach what a T is, debits and credits and stuff like that. But it was just, the bottom line was, as an entrepreneur, you never want to sell it less than what it takes you to make it. It never works.
Yeah.
It's tried and true.
Actually, that seems like a duh moment for people maybe listening, but I want to point out that the temptation is always to lower your price.
Right.
And I've heard now, you're saying it now, Grant Cardone has said it, I've heard it from Ed Milet, you should be thinking how to raise your price and sell it and that's a hard thing to do because you always want to. It's like if you're a real estate agent with your commission.
Yeah, why would you
want
lower
to
your
cut your commission? You want to go.
No way.
But a lot of real estate agents do. They want to go.
But that's
I'm going to do 1%. It will kill you.
It will kill you. Yeah, you're already done at that point. If you're doing that,
you're done.
If you're done, you're done at that point.
Because you have to do such volumes.
That's right. That's
So
exactly right.
you know, basically, you learn you are discounting yourself.
The only saving grace that I'd say when I look back on that time, why did I do that? Because it seems right. If it takes you $1 to make the widget, and you're selling it for 50 cents, it doesn't take long to figure out.
That ain't gonna work.
That's not gonna work. But at that time, it was at the explosion of the .com industry. So it was all about getting eyeballs to the thing. I mean, you have to understand.
You thought of it as a loss leader.
Oh, I thought we were getting eyeballs to our website. In fact, we were going to do a superstore. And the old term, the oxygen, it was sucked out of the venture capital firms means after Pets.com had gotten all the money, there was nothing left for anyone else, even though Pets.com didn't really have a way to get people to their website. And here I am, got this huge, massive list of millions. The pet socket, that's right. But we went out, and in 2 weeks, Bobby and I and the team, we would work during the day, and then we would go to a warehouse. And we found, since no one wanted to work with us because of the Pets.com relationship, and there was Petopia out there who was hooked up with Petco. So we found this guy, Ari. I can't remember his last name. I'm laughing because we went out and convinced Ari, hey, Ari, we're going to sell the living tar out of this pet stuff because we have all things. We need to do a pet. So I think we called we were petworld.com. Is I think who we were. Was it Pet World? We had a little globe and a little pet sign coming out. But in 2 weeks, we photographed, knocked the backgrounds, which is kind of why I knew we could do the green screen.
Right.
Because I'd done this. But we photographed literally thousands of items. Even all the fish-related ones. Fish-related ones is a bazillion. We would just put them up. We would write on the card the number in black marker. We'd take a photograph of it. We put in the FileMaker Pro database the number, what it was, and the description.
So your whole plan was, I create this pet magazine to get eyeballs, to drive them to petworld.com to buy dog food, cat food, whatever.
Dude, it would have been a home run. It's really.
Well, why wasn't it? Why did it? Like, what's the lesson there? Like,
well the lesson I say is we got it up, but the problem was we were selling. If I could go back and do what I do right now, I'd raise the price immediately. I'd raise the price because the truth is, veterinarians were getting something that was educating their clients on the value of who they were as a veterinarian. So I was giving it away. It's the same thing. What I say to the listeners, especially if you're a realtor or a financial advisor, whatever industry you're in, it's putting something into the hands of your clients that's going to remind them of the value that you place on them is critical, especially as we're going into a data world. You know, everybody's talking about we're going into a data world, right? Well, my argument, the good thing, everybody thinks it's terrible, but the good thing about a data world is I think business is going to boil down to one thing, and that's relationships.
Right.
Nothing else.
Everything
Nothing else is going to matter. And in a lot of industries, it gets commoditized. You know what I'm saying? But it's not that real estate might get commoditized at some point, but once it's commoditized, who's going to win? It's the realtors that understand the relationship and do a good job of connecting it. Yep. Whether it's with ReminderMedia, with our American Lifestyle, our digital edition, our social media component. You know, we're hoping to deliver on a couple other things that the realtors are asking.
We will deliver. Hope is...
Okay, we will. Hope is not the right... Okay, we will.
We will deliver.
Luke will deliver, right? Because Josh and you have so much energy.
Guys, that is a golden nugget right there. Luke will deliver.
That's right, golden nugget. Luke, what I'm saying to you is those that can do that are going to survive whatever. You already see how the internet is affecting real estate sales as it is today, even more so than it was in 2004, 5, 6, and 7, and so forth. You see how it's happening. What it's going to boil down to is the realtors that succeed are the ones that can drive those relationships and drive them home. And so I would have raised my price and gotten on down the road, and I would have killed it. I would have been huge. I would have known.
So does that boil back in your mind for all the entrepreneurs that are listening to this? Is it that you should have believed more in your idea and gone for it all? Like, it's almost like maybe it's not the right analogy, but swing away. Like, if you're going to play all the way.
No, I think it's what you're saying. It's the value of what you're selling. I don't know
Understanding the value of what you're selling.
I understand that the value at the time I was doing it for the cost of a stamp, but we had raised it up just a little bit because we were just bleeding.
Right.
So we had raised it up to 60 cents or 69 cents or something like that. I can't remember. We raised it a little bit, but what price do you put on educating your clients on why they should come to you? And the same thing. No, but it's like what I try to tell our account executives downstairs when they're talking to realtors. They're getting into a battle of price, or the team that's going after the financial advisors and helping them. You're getting into a discussion on the value of my magazine. I think the discussion should be, how valuable is the relationship? Because if it's not worth what I'm going to charge you for the magazine, then you should go find something else. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to be aggressive. Now these people are saying, oh, I'm getting to know him a little bit. I'm trying to tell you something. If you don't want to invest $24 a year in then I wish you the best of luck. I wish you the best of luck.
No, I think that's so powerful, man. I think the people listening to this, think about your product. Think about what you're selling. And if you don't have the confidence level to where you're worth the money that they're paying you,
what are you doing?
Yeah, why are you even in that business?
It's kind of like making the phone calls.
Get out of that business.
It's kind of like making the phone calls. The idea on relationship marketing and that the way I see the world, and as long as I can have an opportunity to lead the organization, this is what I'm going to tell them. It's like everything that you do has got to drive the relationship to have the personal touch. I mean, the more we get going, and everybody knows this, you go to a restaurant, you look around.
Everybody's on their phone.
Yeah, everybody's sitting there. I mean, I'm sitting there and they're going like this, and I'm kind of like, I was out with someone the other day and we were having dinner, and I was said to her, I was like, look around. And I was catching myself. I had my phone there beside it, and I was looking around, and I was realizing, wait a second. So what I have, and she would tell you I'm probably not doing as good a job as I should, but I am keeping it, in my pocket a whole lot more.
Well, I've had to be so conscious of that. I mean, you just have to. It's just so natural. It's such a distraction.
But you ever feel it vibrate when you don't actually have
the phantom vibration?
Yeah, the phantom. That's a real thing.
And then if you get a watch, like I've got an Apple Watch, and I get the same thing on my wrist.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
So with the point I was making, come back to what I was saying, it's the relationship that counts, and it's making those phone calls, and everything that we're trying to do, and everything that we do. Is to enhance that, is to make those phone calls. The golden tip that I would give everybody who's listening, if you want to work with ReminderMedia, use our tools to set you up for that emotional connection.
For the actual real proactive outreach to your clients. Yeah. No, I 100%.
And you don't have to sell on those. When you start finding out that your top 50 people that are in your database, when you start finding out, in the goal we just do is just 50. Start there because we know we can impact businesses, but the truth is, you want to try to get 150 or even 175 or even 200 relationships where you can call them and you can invest in them. And when you start investing in them, it's just a natural. Referrals will come. That's a piece of cake. But if they don't know who you are and they don't know that you have a vested interest in that relationship, the odds of getting it are not good.
So you did the pet magazine, right? And I want to get to now what everybody knows us as, which is really American Lifestyle Magazine. The company's ReminderMedia. We have a ton of products, but our flagship product that a lot of people know is American Lifestyle. After the pet magazine, and you went on to sell that, right? So you went on to sell the pet magazine. So, and there's a whole story we could get into there, but for the sake of time, we'll jump to the creation of American Lifestyle Magazine. Sure. What made you go, man, I can do this for real estate agents, to do exactly what you just talked about, which is get the referrals, build the relationships.
Since Josh told me he wants a lot of teasers, I'll throw a teaser out in there. I just realized that realtors, I just came across and realized that one of the challenges that they have is staying connected to the people, because the problem is, not the problem, but the issue is the average homeowner, it's moved around, but it's 7 years. If you look back, I believe, and don't quote me on it, but I believe it's 7 years. When the market's got real hot, when they move, got down to 5, and it might, in slower times, it might go up to 9, but 7 is the number. It's hard. You got to have a long-term vision for maintaining a connection over 7 years. We're in such a society where it's immediate responses that people want.
But what triggered you in real estate? I know.
All right. Well, you're pulling the teaser out. So I guess
I'm pulling out like this is the Katie Couric interviewing.
We can go there. All right. Well, once they sold the other company, moved back here to Pennsylvania where we're based, and because I went to college and family around here and everything, and so my business partner was my college roommate, and so him and his wife were, as I said in the video, were coming for church one day, and she in that moment made the decision that, hey, I want to look at a house because that's the moment, and you never know when that's going to happen. Boom, this person's now ready to buy. You can have indications of when someone's going to buy, but you don't ever know when that person is mentally going to say, I'm ready to buy.
Yeah, and a lot of times I've read one time it's like 14 to 16 months, the process of someone buying a home.
Yeah. But in that moment, she saw an open house. We went in, and just in there, I didn't know anything about real estate. Nothing. Other than I knew what a realtor did. They sell homes. Right. But I didn't understand 3% buy side, 3% sell. So I didn't understand any of that stuff. But as a salesperson, I immediately picked up that this realtor really only wanted to know, did they have a realtor or were they working with someone? And it was real obvious. He was very obvious about that. And I didn't understand at the time initially why, but I real quickly realized, because if you have a realtor, guess what? I've got to sell you
this house. But if you don't, I can sell you any house.
I can become your realtor. And so he did a great job on that. I will tell you that. He did a great job. So maybe I should say he did a great job in the first one, because he pulled that out almost immediately. And then he shifted gears and said, hey, I'll be a realtor and so forth. And we look at what he's looking for. And then he started doing what real good realtors do. By the time we had gotten home, he had already left a message for them on their answering machine, and he was going to be emailing them, additionals. And he was already just making the assumption I'm your realtor at that point. And so then I just realized that. And so then it just became searching and realizing, okay, there's an issue there. There's an issue there. And so because the issue was the people, your partner,
they worked with a realtor.
They couldn't remember
3 to 4 years ago.
Well, about 5. They had bought the house there in Mount Joy where they lived about 5 years ago. So they were right at that 5-year mark. And so, but I don't want to say random, but a random real estate agent at an open house.
Random now, we don't know.
Now has that client.
Yeah, and sold them the house they bought and sold the house in Mount Joy.
Right.
So then, I didn't understand it right then. I understand it today. There's a 3%. That was a huge day for that guy that we stopped off there. It was huge for him.
And the only thing that was missing was the past relationship with that former realtor.
In hindsight, what Bob said, and you've heard him say this before, is like, I was getting, I don't want to say who the company or anything like that, but I was getting the postcards. And postcards are great for a certain level of connectivity that you're trying to achieve, because we do them.
Yep.
So they're great for
prospecting, for your farming.
Yeah, but for like the relationship that you
As Luke would say, they suck for relationships.
Yeah, they do. They suck.
So
they go right in the garbage.
Right. So when we I don't know where you got that from. So when we got home and we realized that, and then over the next day or two where we realized there's something here, because we were looking at what are we going to do next. And so we realized, hey, that could be a problem. So then we just went down to the Barnes & Noble and bought a Country Living magazine, and we tore out 48 pages. And then we had Josh, because I think you were with us at the time, even though we didn't know what we were going to do. You were still working. We were selling cars. We were doing that. So I said, hey, whoop me up a cover, call it, I think was it Your Home?
The first one was Your Home.
That's right. Makeup, and it didn't look very good. At the time, Josh, he was,
his design
skill was a little rough.
My craft.
Yes, he was.
We didn't have the review process.
That's right. We didn't have the meetings that we need to have. No, I'm just kidding. So we did the covers around it. We stapled it. And then Bob and I went over to the RE/MAX office there in Lancaster and asked if we could just talk to the realtors when they're coming in. We had this great idea. And I can just remember it was funny. There's other moments where they were looking at it and they would see the Your Home and they kind of liked the cover, So they would open it up and then be like, well, this is Country Living. And we'd be like, man, don't worry about that.
That's the concept.
That's the concept. Pretend would you. And by the time we got home that day, I think we had 5, 6, 7, 8 messages from realtors. And they were all asking buying questions. Wow. We didn't even know the cost. We were like, they were asking us how much it cost. And we were like, I don't know,
$1.50?
Yeah, $2, $3. And then, or what if I was doing 1,000? So you just you got this sense. You get the sense, hey, this will work. And this time we did do a little bit of what's called a pro forma. We said, how many realtors are out there? And then we
you did a little bit of market research.
Yes, we did a little more than just let's plug 2 phones in and start calling and closing veterinarians without having any idea as to what do you do then.
So you looked
it's
at the
almost
market.
like, have you seen that Far Side where the dog it has has caught the car, or you know how they chase the cars, and the car is stopped, and the dog is there, and he's like, and the caption is, "What do I do now?" So it was almost, so this was a little different. It wasn't like, what do I do now? I knew what to do, but then it was like, let's get a performance together, downtown, let's put it together, and then let's put a price on this thing, and now, where do the numbers scale in terms of printing? We got to get to hundreds of thousands of these things.
Right.
So what will the printer not completely kill us on if we only have? And so we started selling and closing and going, and then we didn't look back from there. Now, did I know it would work? As I said to him, did I know it would work? I can remember, this is going to work? Yeah, this is going to work. Don't worry about it. It's going to work. Yeah, it's going to work.
And I'll note you had invested everything you had.
At that point, everything that we had, which wasn't a lot.
So I just point that out because I think it's powerful. We talked about the reset to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
One is the idea to monetization. Yeah. The idea was realtors have a problem. They're keeping in touch. So you go to Barnes & Noble, you get or whatever, get the home living or whatever. Put it together, go see if someone will buy it. So that comes full circle. And the other is that not that you reset again, but you take all the risk again. Here you sell your pet magazine and you don't go for security. You take all that and invest in a
That's right. But Luke, company. As president of ReminderMedia, we do not want to reset again.
Yeah.
We do not want to reset again. No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're going all in now. So, obviously, because, we're running out of time here. But let's talk, just a little bit about, in your experience of growing ReminderMedia, to wrap it up, is, it's been amazing. This year we'll work with probably 38,000, 40,000 small business clients from where it was 17, 16 years ago in a garage. What has been what would you tell the entrepreneurs listening to this? Like, what would you tell the people just getting into real estate now, the financial advisors that are trying to scale their business? What are some of the tips you would give them that you've learned over the last 16 years?
I think the number one thing is just, you just got to believe in what you're doing. You just got to come back to believing in what you're doing. So often I think when people fail, and you've said this, and is that you can have a great idea, it doesn't get much sales. You can have a terrible product or terrible product idea.
And it gets tons.
Yeah. So you got to believe in what you're doing, and I think that comes across. If you're a financial advisor out there, if you don't believe in what you're trying to do to help these people plan for their future, if you're a realtor, if you're not believing that you're going to help people find their house, if you're a mortgage, title, a pool cleaner, if you don't have a passion for the people that are going to be your relationships, to open the pool up for the summer, to keep it clean, if that's not, if you don't have a passion for that, money just doesn't motivate. It does, but it doesn't. It doesn't hold true. So my biggest tip is you got to believe, number one, in what you do, and then don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to take risks in all aspects of it. If you're a realtor out there and you got a great idea on how you can capture apartment sales or something like that, just do it. Just do it.
Fail fast.
Yeah, who's this? Is that my
Luke Acree. We'll hashtag that. I
know you've seen that somewhere because I read
fail
that.
Fast, but
yeah, it's fail fast. It's fail fast.
When you're saying that, it makes me think of the time we mentioned on the podcast, that lady who spoke. It was a real estate agent that says I think it was door knocking. Terrified of door knocking, but my why is bigger than my fear.
Yeah,
and I think in a practicality sense, when you hear belief, guys, and it's like the reason why it's so powerful is because belief is what you said. It breeds execution, and execution brings the money and everything else that flows from it. But it's like your belief is bigger than your fears.
Yeah.
And it makes you be able to do the risk.
And then the second one that I would tell you is be careful. Be careful where you get advice. Be careful. Be careful. Because, and it's not because it's evil intent advice. It has nothing to do with that. But if you're asking someone who hasn't walked through anything, what it takes to walk through something, the advice you're probably going to get is go down the primrose path, which is never going to get you there. But you got to be willing to ask the people who have gotten there, because they might help you, but they probably won't help you. But at least they'll tell you, if you want to climb the mountain, you got to keep going. You can't ask the guy that's behind you, hey, what do you think I need to do to go to the next level, to get to the next height on this hill? What do you think I should do? He's still trying to figure out how to put the ladder up and go one thing at a time. And you're somewhere where you're looking at something and this looks insurmountable. No, it's only insurmountable in your mind. You have to then look at it and then figure out, how am I going to get past this?
That's so valuable in the world of Instagram today and YouTube. Everybody's a coach.
Yeah.
Everybody's a coach. There's a powerful saying of like, don't look at what people say, look at what they do.
Yes, of course.
What they do.
Of course.
So like it's a really easy way to get direction. And also when you think about, Facebook and its success, Facebook is just a ripoff of MySpace, and MySpace is just a ripoff of Friendster. And you think of like your checkbooks, Freedom checkbooks.
It was just a reset.
It was just a reset of past books or whatever. It's like, you're looking at, don't try to reinvent the wheel, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is like, look at the people who've gone before you. They have models that work. Take the best of that and implement it day in and day out, and you'll tweak it. And we keep saying now, it's literally just action, tracking what you do, and then learn to pivot.
Yeah, sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, One of the funniest things that is, I have very few people around me that can do this. When I was going through this, the only person that really did this is Bob. We were in the other building, and I have very few people that can get me to let go of a belief. I have very few. But I can remember this one issue, and I was adamant about it. I was just adamant about it. And I remember after certain things, I remember I was in my office, and Bob came in that night after we were still working, probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And he comes in, he says, hey, I'm going to go take off. He goes, I'll see you in the morning. And I said, okay. And he goes, hey, I'll tell you one thing. He goes, and this is here's another golden nugget. If you're going to build something big, sometimes, sometimes realtors are independent, and the financial advisors just ones. But if you're going to build a team, here's what I've also learned. And I try to, with all my senior execs, I'm constantly trying to remind everyone of this, is like, Bob looked at me and he goes, hey, you know that issue? And I was like, yeah. He goes, I want to tell you something. He says, you're dragging around a dead horse. He goes, I want to tell you something. It stinks. It's awful. And I'm looking at it, and he goes, and I want you to know, everyone around you thinks it stinks and it's awful. I said, but I want you to know something, man. He says, I'm going to tell that to you. He says, but I tell you something. He says, when I go out there, he goes, I'm going to continue to drag that dead horse around as long as you want me to drag that dead horse around. And I remember, and he goes, but I want you to know that I'm with you, man, and we're going to drag that dead horse as long as you want it to drag. So he left, and Bob was very good at what he did. He was very, very good. And we had a great relationship, we really did. I can remember I went home that night, and I'm like, yeah, maybe it is dead. So I remember I came in the next day, and I remember Bob, we got together. I usually met with him first thing in the morning before we kicked the day off. And I looked at him, I said, are you sure it's dead?
I got a little whiff of it last night.
Yeah. He goes, dude, I've tried to resuscitate that baby so many times, but there's nothing left to resuscitate.
That's so good.
And I just was like, all right, we're changing course. Let's go, And but those people that you have around that can do that with you, man, you got to have a level of trust with them that is extremely high. You got to have it. And those are the people even outside of ReminderMedia. I know several individuals. I won't drop names, but I know individuals because of where I'm at and the opportunities that I've had with ReminderMedia. I've sat with, that golden nugget I gave you with that one financial, CEO, that I gave to you. When you're at that level, you want to listen to those. You want to listen to those people because they've just gotten, they've seen things. And I think that's what I try to do, not just with you, but with you and the rest of my senior exec staff. And
you've done it with the audience today.
I've tried. It's really got to go down.
Self-reflection.
Dude, It was worth the wait. It took us 100 episodes.
It took us
how many hours?
Dude, we could go on
podcasting?
for hours and hours. I'd love to do another one on the journey of ReminderMedia.
Yeah, we didn't even get into
we didn't get into the
we touched a little bit of the first magazine
building
sample,
out
but
like the things that we've been through.
Incredible.
Oh man,
crazy.
some of those stories.
Yeah.
Some of those stories, like when the first printing, we had issues with that.
All right, we're going to save it.
We'll save it. We're going to do a whole new episode.
We are going to get you back on. It might take
We'll talk about
200.
the time where we lost, $1.2 million, I think it was, an account worth that. But
Yep.
so
Reset
that will make
time.
you nervous.
I'm going to sit that one out.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Stay Paid. If you liked what you heard, please go on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. Make sure to leave a comment. You can also find our podcast, including this one, in video on youtube.com/ReminderMedia. I have to tell you, it's weird not speaking into a mic. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, it is. And I'm not sure where to look. Like, this new studio is going to take a while to get used
like
to.
the inflection's going all over the place, I feel like, in my voice, because I'm not talking into it.
Yeah. We have that safety of the microphone.
Hey,
I got one more golden nugget.
Yes.
Is every realtor is in a relationship-based business. They all have a database of contacts, and each and every contact knows 3 to 5 people. Let's help them connect to those people. Let's help them capture those leads. Let's help them convert. Because if we do that, we're
Preach it.
And if you'd like to connect with me or Luke or Stay Paid Podcast, you can hit us up on Instagram at Stay Paid Podcast. Do us a favor, tell someone else about the podcast. If you're looking to figure out how to support the show, if you're buying Reminder Media stuff, awesome. That's one way to support it.
Right.
That's the best way to support it. If you're not there yet, you can also tell a friend, here's how the conversation's going to go. Your friend's going to ask you, hey, have you heard any new great podcasts lately? You're going to say yes. Check out Stay Paid. Episode 100 is a gem. You can also find Reminder Media on social media. We are at Reminder Media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree. Guys, in the action item, man, it's such a great story hearing the entrepreneur's journey. But I think 2 action items I think that you can reflect on today is, one is, what is that belief that's driving you? And do you have a belief that's big enough to overcome your inaction? Yeah. Because this whole podcast is about taking action. Like, our desire as we create this content is to try to inspire you a little bit and give you a golden nugget, a tip that you can turn around and right after you listen to this, take action on. That's what we close every podcast with. So what is that belief that you have that is big enough to help you overcome your fear? So if you're not making the cold calls today, if you didn't do that, but you know you needed to do that, you need to check your belief. And you need to do that right now. And maybe you call it your why. What is it that is helping you overcome that fear? And then second, because I don't want to leave this out because I think it's super powerful, what's the dead horse you're dragging around right now? What is that dead horse that you're dragging around that you know stinks, that people have told you that stinks? Get rid of that right now. Drop that right now in your life and start focusing on the future. Let that dead horse go. Remember, the difference between a top producer and a mediocre producer in any industry is top producers take action. So take action on that today.
Awesome.
Woo!